All right. Good morning, everyone. There, Jen. I did it again. And welcome to another episode of How I Met Your Mortgage. God, I think this is season 3, number 41. We have been at this for a good long while, no question. But yeah, it is what it is. Good morning, Jen. How are you?
Morning. I'm good. How are you?
So
Good
for
afternoon, good night, whatever.
wherever people are
Yeah.
catching this in syndication, absolutely.
Mhm.
And Jen, of course, is our marketing director and one of our coaches here at Just the Tip. She's with us most of the time, unless she and a colleague of ours boot me off the show completely, and that does happen from time to time. And today we've got a really special guest for you guys, Khai McBride with, well, I guess it's actually KMP. Is that right? Khai McBride Performance Coaching?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well, good morning,
Very
Khai. Welcome.
cool. Good to be here.
You're,
Good to
you're,
be here.
you're kind of hiding
Finally-
your logo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, so everybody needs to know. Sorry, I'm from LA, and in tribute of Kobe and his hard work ethic, I'm wearing Kobe jerseys for every presentation, every live event that I do this year. But there haven't been any live events, so these jerseys have been on every Zoom event this year.
That's funny because I was thinking about it this morning, and I think the last time we saw you was basically one of the last live events. Well, we did pull ours off back in September as usual, which was bizarre at best. But yeah, I think Jen and I saw you in Austin, Texas back in February. And that was right before the world shut down. And certainly, while there's been some flexibility to the term shutdown, that's not the case in California. You guys are pretty much chained to your homes, as it were, unless you work at Target or what were the three? Mortgages, guns, and hand sanitizers seem to be the
Yeah, yeah,
businesses to be in these days.
yeah. I squeezed in one more live event March 13th in Orlando. It was weird. It was like a ghost town. It was for the MLO Net group, and I think about 30% of them didn't show up, including some of the speakers, because it was just kind of weird. And they said, "Khai, you're safe for an hour, but can you do two?" Sure.
Sure, why not?
I'll actually go into
Absolutely.
detail with things. And some people went up to speak the last minute, and we did what we could. And when I came home, there was no toilet paper. Literally.
Oh, good. Jen and I were there a week earlier. That was our last live conference trip. We flew back from Orlando on March 8th, and while Jen has done some travel since then, although very little, and we did have the Mile High Mastermind here in September, I have yet to get on an airplane, although that's going to change on Thursday. We'll see how that goes.
Well, we're so shut down in California that my life is sitting at home doing nothing or getting on a plane and feeling close to normal again. So.
Yeah, that'll be interesting, no question. Well, so it's been since February since we saw you, since March since you were kind of on your normal roll. What's the rest of the year been like for you? What have you been up to?
Gosh, so much stuff. I mean, from a business point of view,
Yes.
besides COVID, we've got this just mass refinance hysteria, volume hysteria, that type of thing. And the thing about my coaching model, which I can get into, is that we specialize in systems, team building, and capacity. That's our thing. So even though I don't directly get more mortgage business because of all the refinances, when all of the mortgage people, they're just blowing up in capacity, now everybody's coming to me. So I brought on, I mean, not all this year, but in the last 2 years, I brought on 4 coaches. So there's 5 of us now. So I brought 3 of them on this year, and we increased 50% clients. And my business, like everybody else, I'm figuring out my own capacity issues. So there's that. In terms of everything else, the first 6 months, there's COVID. Living in LA, we're probably like riot central for every Black Lives Matter movement. I think everybody just calls LA and says, "Are you guys writing? Because we're waiting for you to write first, and then we'll write." So there's been that, and everything has been Zoom. I think we've been adjusting to Zoom. What's funny about Zoom? I've been doing Zoom coaching calls for 3 years, normally, you know what, you're in a polo shirt, you make yourself look good. Lately, it's anything goes, man. People wearing hats, there's babies hanging in the background, you hear dogs barking. Nobody cares anymore. It's just whatever, dude. Just get on the call. I think Robert one time was like in a tank top because he was in Destin doing a call from there. Like, that's fine. And but it's opened up a lot too. I think just recently, a lot of my clients, they're starting to realize, hey, wait a second. I think really the world is starting to function remotely. So I'm worried about commercial real estate, right? All the renters and these empty buildings, because a lot of people are saying, why do I need to go back to the building? Half of my people can be remote. And I even said to myself, I need a new assistant. Why am I going to pay California prices for that? I can find somebody in Des Moines, maybe for 30% cheaper. And I know all the California businesses are starting to look at that now. They can find a processor in Nevada. It's interesting times.
It's certainly true in the mortgage space, and certainly true in the small to medium space, I would think. Jen and I actually had a conversation with one of our coaching clients, maybe last week, who's got he's got an ear to the ground when it comes to some execs at some big IT firms like Twitter was one of them, Facebook was another. And they feel very differently about it. They are motivated to get everybody back in the office. So we'll see. It is definitely a very gray area. We've been eyeballing a big commercial space for our operations, both the mortgage company and the coaching company next door to where we're at now. And you've seen that space. And yeah, I'm waiting. They made me a proposal on the space, and I want to see if the commercial market's going to soften a little bit before I go back and say, yeah, I think we can do better. But yeah, I agree. And of course, everything's a gray area right now. We don't know anything. Nobody knows any facts. You can't believe a word you see or hear or read or watch. So yeah, it's difficult to make decisions on, well, we talk about how it's difficult to make decisions on imperfect information, but that you have to. It's almost impossible to make decisions when there's no information. So, yeah, that's certainly one of the big gray areas right now, is what commercial office space in particular is going to look like going forward. So, yeah,
I think everybody's at their emotional tolerance, though. So even though that sounds good, and they're probably people that have been working in the offices for a long time, they can't, they love being at home. There are a lot of parents right now that they don't want to participate anymore in homeschooling. They're like, the kids need to go back to school. I need to go back to the office. I don't want to be at home anymore. Some people aren't motivated at home. I would prefer to go into an office. If I had my whole team here and we could do that, I would totally do it. It keeps me more focused. Just, my business model is remote the way it is. But no, I feel you. And yeah, there's a lot of people that can't wait to get out, especially in California.
Yeah, I'll bet that's true.
I'm sure.
Those lockdowns probably rival what went on in the boroughs of New York over the first 6 weeks back in March and April. It was a really stringent lockdown. Seeing imagery of downtown LA, Staples Center, Times Square without any people in it is just one of the weirdest types of imagery that we've had this year. It's really bizarre.
I just got back from Vegas, and I've never seen McCarran Airport empty on a Sunday going home as I did yesterday. I didn't even need pre-check. I just walked up right to the line.
That's funny because I considered that. I checked my airline tickets this morning to see if my known traveler number was on there, and it occurred to me after I looked that it probably doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't. But the thing too is there's certain airlines like Southwest, they have a no middle seat policy, and there are other airlines, I think United, certain American flights where they'll fill it up if they need to, certain routes, flights. But Southwest right now is pretty good with no middle seats. They're trying to keep everybody social distanced.
And I'm not hearing a lot of news about the airlines being an issue. I mean, I don't think there's any question outside of being outside of being outdoors, that being on an airplane is probably the safest air you could breathe anyway. Their filtration systems are ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's just that we don't want to further damage the airline industry. But yeah, I haven't heard any significant chatter about the air flights being, a significant issue. Gosh, in months.
Yeah. But here's the reality. I mean, just we talk about that stuff, but people like us in the mortgage industry, we're doing really well. And I have some survivor's guilt, right? Because then we've got other friends not in the mortgage industry that are struggling a little bit. I know airline captain pilot friends that they've been furloughed. Like, I don't work for American anymore. They finally like let us go, right?
Yeah, that's funny. I was thinking about Lo this morning, by the way.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You met her. Yeah,
I did.
she just literally 2 days ago they officially furloughed her. So now she doesn't have a job. And her husband is a pilot too. So that's two of them. That's interesting. It's like when like having a mortgage spouse. But our business is just going extremely crazy and extremely well. So it's really a tale of two tapes. I mean, on one hand, people can't handle the business. I'm in the thick of that, helping them. It's kind of laughable, sort of the business that people are doing, and it's kept me well. But I think one of the themes that I'm trying to, push with people, and you kind of saw a turn because we did this whole refi wave, but right, Adam, maybe like, I don't know, 2 months ago, people started saying, I'm done with refis. I'm going to go back to purchases. I'm going to focus on purchases, but because rates are still really low, they're still doing the same volume at purchase business. And I said, yes, it's got to go back to that. And as a matter of fact, I'd rather see people not break records as much as just increase their production to where they want it to be, but keep quality service. Nobody wants to do all the highest record business that's all refinance and shitty quality of service, right? Throttle it at 80%. Like if you're at 50%, jump it to 80% and do 20 good purchase loans where all the realtors and clients love you. Focus on service, because when that market drops, I don't think it's going to anytime soon because this economy sucks. But when it does, we do not want 2008 again. And I think one of the trends that I've seen with our industry and even people that I coach is that everybody's saving money right now. And I think that's really, really good. Because in 2008, all the money that you made was the Mercedes that you bought. But people are crazy. Now, if they started the industry after 2008, they don't have that perspective. So I start telling them stories about how I didn't have money for gas and, cars getting repoed and things like that to try to spook them a little bit.
Good.
But, I think our industry is more responsible. Yeah. But, and then there's a group of people, and you know them, they just will never get it. They're overworked, they're overplayed, they're putting 60 hours a weekend. They haven't seen their family, since March because it's too much business. And I think part of my message in working with people, and you're an epitome of this, Adam, you built a business, you built a team, you enjoy your life, but you're successful because you understand arbitrage and how to leverage people. And I think for the two of us, that's a lot of our quest is to teach people that purpose and not to slave yourself to money. Because if you are, then the opposite's going to happen when the market drops. You're going to have nothing to do because you haven't built any systems that are going to last.
Very true. But let's delve into that because I think it paints an interesting picture for 2020. And obviously in a very generic arena. And bear in mind, a lot of our audience is not just LOs, but certainly real estate agents, as that's the majority of our coaching clients. What kind of systems are we talking about? What kinds of things should people still be if they didn't do it 10 months ago or 8 months ago? What kinds of things should people be focused on to ensure that their time spend, their dollars spend, their team spend, their sanity spend is being leveraged properly going into 21, 22, and whatever economic future we may see?
Right. So if we're talking to a general business audience, which is fine because I consider myself more of a business coach than a mortgage coach per se. I'm like a business entrepreneur coach in the mortgage industry, which is my niche. So two things, everybody watching, listening. My favorite business book of all time is The E-Myth Revisited. It talks about how to leverage yourself into business. If you've never read the book, you have to run and get it now. You will be thankful. And my favorite movie, which epitomizes that, is The Founder with Michael Keaton, which tells the McDonald's story. It's pretty much the book in real life. And if you look at the success of McDonald's would have zero success without the systems that the McDonald's brothers created. And Ray Kroc was able to then leverage that and expand greatly. And here's the thing. So they created the system. And even though they created this really cool system, they even said that they didn't know how to expand. So his expertise was how to leverage that. Okay. So when you watch the movie, you read the book, you know what I'm talking about, but I can break it down into like three components. Okay. So if you look at everything that you do manually, actually, let's start with this. Whoever's listening, take your total income from last year and then figure out how many hours a week you worked, and then figure out how many weeks you worked, average weeks you worked in a year. So you're going to get your total hours. You divide that into your income, you're going to figure out your hourly rate. Now, I just did this with somebody, so I'll give you like real life numbers. He's making about $280 a year right now. Okay. We figured that he averages 52 hours a week, and he's working the full 50 hours in a week. Just the 2 weeks. He says he takes 4 days off. You figure another 10 days just for holidays and stuff like that. He barely takes any vacation. So he took 52. We took 52 times 50. We said 2,600 hours into 280. His hourly rate is $108. Now, this is in the mortgage industry, and I find that for somebody that makes that kind of money, I look at that and go, you're working a lot. And so he said, well, what's a good hourly rate? I said, 200. There's two ways to make 200. You can make 560, but do you want to work 100 hours? Right? You can double it. So how do you make 560 and not work 100 hours? Well, you have to start to leverage yourself. So I said, in this coaching relationship, your number one goal is to remove yourself from things. Are you okay with that? Because that's the only way to get to $200 an hour. And he said, well, what's an amazing? I said, $300 an hour for a loan officer is amazing, right? And that's what it is, okay? And so we talked about I took all the top producers. I've got a coach that works for me. He just hit 400 units 10 days ago. And I told him, I said, his hourly rate's stupid. It's like 500-600, and guy works like 40 hours a week. Adam, you're successful. I'm sure your hourly rate's really high. You do a lot of production. You're obviously in the Bahamas right now with your trees. What is it, like a Bahamian cabin in Montana, wherever you are, right?
That's right.
But,
I'm in the Bahama cabin.
I don't even think you're in Colorado right now. So, okay, so what is leverage, right? There are 3 leverage points. There's 5, right? There's processes, technology, people, money, and time. Now, time is like the worst leverage point because there's really no leverage. Time is just, it's your earned income. It's every hour, every dollar you make. So that's why it's last. Process is the very first one. Okay. Process is simply, if I do something once, can I repeatedly do it 2, 3, 4 times in a repeated, efficient way, right? Because you ever do something like 5 times, you do it different every single time, it's like completely inefficient. But if you can do it the same, so a process is simple as like a checklist, okay? Like a grocery list. How much faster is it for you to go grocery shopping with a grocery list and without a grocery list? And what if the grocery list was sequenced by aisle? So you just went down aisle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hit everything, boom, you're in and out of the store. That's a process. That's how you leverage efficiency. And there's technology. Technology automates everything that we do. It also leverages, time and space. If we did a live podcast right now, we'd have, 10 people in the audience, right? But this is going to hit thousands of people. Then you're going to syndicate it, and you're going to do that. So technology can replicate, and technology can delegate and automate. People is the third one, because obviously man hours. Do you need to put up that open house sign? Well, there's probably not a lot of open house right now. Well, there are with lockboxes. But think about all things you have transaction coordinators doing, giving updates, doing marketing. There's people that you can hire for that. But the reason why people is third, I think a lot of people turn to people first. But when you hire people without processes and technology, then you have chaos and you don't have efficiency. And when you hire people without technology and processes, you have to hire higher skilled employees because they have to bring their processes and their technology with them. And that's where the Founder movie is a clear example of that. The McDonald's brothers created the processes and the technology, this food technology. And so Ray Kroc was like, okay, now I can build this. I just need to hire a bunch of managers, right? Money is the fourth resource because obviously you need money for some things, but not all the time. And if you do 1, 2, 3 in the right order, you actually spend less money because you can get lower skilled, cheaper employees. So then money's fourth, and then there's your time. And then it's not a leverage point, but all of that requires leadership and training. You can't just buy technology out of the box without training yourself how to use it. You can't hire somebody without training them or getting them trained. And then that person can then train on the technology so that you don't have to, right? And there's a commitment to that. And I think a lot of people think they can just buy a list, they can buy a checklist, they can buy technology, they can buy people, and then just make it happen, just do your thing. But that's just going to cost more money without the training. The training will then make everything more efficient, more replicable. And those are the components. And you start breaking those things down one at a time until you get to that place. And then you say to yourself, you're at $100 an hour. How do you get to $200 an hour? Yeah. And I looked at my client and I said, look, if you didn't take that application, he says, well, I like taking applications. I said, well, okay, well, that's costing you $100 for that application. What if you let your LOA do it? That's $30 an hour. So you're going to net $70 an hour not taking an application. So what are you going to do with that time? Well, I would love you to do business development, but let's just say you're going to take that time to do a second application. So now you're doing 2 applications in the same hour, and you're netting 70 plus your 100. So now you made 170. But what if instead of doing 2, you just have 2 LOAs do it? You're making 140. You're making 140 there, and you're bringing more business development. You just keep cranking, and that's how you have to look at every single thing. You need to break it down. Be good at math.
Oh, you've got to be good at math?
I'm Asian, so it's just like
it's just automatic. Got it. Although I've also seen you try to park a car, so there's that.
No, technically, I wasn't parking the car. So okay, we went to the Rockies game, and there's a parking lot, and then Adam goes, "Look at Khai parking the car." So technically, I wasn't parking the car. Paul was parking the car. I got out of the car to direct him because I'm good at geometry to help him figure out the angles coming in and out. But I'm not touching the steering wheel.
Probably a good idea. I get that. But yeah, I saw you jump out of the car and work all the angles in your head. And you knew that if he turned the wheel 18.5 degrees or 18.55 degrees, that he'd be able to back right into that tight little spot. Yeah, we saw it go down. I'm
not tall enough to see over the back seat, but I can see the angles from the ground. Okay, so we're gonna go with that.
Perfect. All right, good.
Oh boy.
So, what is the practical first step, you think? So, let's say I'm an LO doing my own thing. I'm a real estate agent doing my own thing, or an Asian doing my own thing, whatever the case may be. And I don't have an LOA. I don't have a TC. I don't have any support. I'm basically doing it all on my own. How do I take that step back and really start to identify and break down all this crap that I'm doing all on my own so that I can start to find those places where I can take my $20 an hour work and pay somebody to do it so I can focus on my $200 an hour work?
Right. It's actually a really simple process. I do this a combination of just it's a natural way that I learn, and then my mentor taught me this. But when I first got into the mortgage industry, it wasn't my choice. None of us woke up, in 10th grade and said, I want to go get a mortgage degree and go to mortgage university and be a loan officer. Maybe real estate. Okay. Real estate is actually something you say, I want to be a real estate agent one day, but definitely not mortgages. Think about the mortgage. So I didn't even know what a mortgage was. I didn't even know how it worked. So the person was training me, and it was just like way too much. So I said, wait a second, let's literally break it down like one step at a time. What's first? And I took a notepad and I wrote down, first, this happens. So what you do is you take your entire day, you take your entire week. Like I said, doesn't matter what you are. You can be a financial planner, you can be a CPA. Write down every time you do something at every 15 minutes, every little task you do. You go to I don't want to say go to the copier. Nobody goes to the copier anymore, but you print something, you mail something, you get on a Zoom call, whatever it is. You list every single thing that you do. And that's how that's your everyday. Just like if you wanted to learn how to, we all have family members, like my mom's an amazing cook. If I wanted to watch her cook an amazing meal, I'd probably record it, then watch the recording and say, okay, she did this first, she did that second. So I came up with a checklist for a loan officer, and real estate's a little bit different, but we go through about 175 steps to close a loan, 175 items to close a loan. And now people are saying, no wonder my job is so hard. No wonder I forget so many things. And realtors, please have compassion for whoever the loan officer you're working with, because they have to do 175 things and remember them and do them in the right sequence, right? So here's the thing. Each one of those activities has a value to it. How much does it cost to do that activity? So let's just say it's a high-end consultation with a self-employed CEO who's got C corp, and he's got 27 properties, and it needs your full $108 an hour expertise. As a matter of fact, you may even be worth more than that. See, $108 an hour is actually kind of like your lower average because you do all the crap work. You may be actually worth $200 an hour. So you say to myself, okay, so that hour consultation is worth $200. But now I have to write an email and chase paperwork. Well, that's $20, right? So what you do is you look at every little thing and you find the things that have the lowest value. You start with the $10, the $20 an hour things. So if I collected all the $20 or less hour things, all the email chasing and the phone calls and asking for this and putting up a sign and making copies, if you collected all those things out of 180 steps, there's 40 of them that are $20 an hour. Well, $20 an hour is $40,000 a year. That's a $40,000 job, and those 20 things is their job description. You do these 20 things for $40,000 a year, right? Then what's the next line? Well, then you got your $30 an hour things. Well, that's a $60,000 employee, or at least a $30 an hour employee. It may not be full time, but hey, I'm going to pay you $30 an hour to do these 10 things part time. And then you look at some of those things and you say, but can technology to do this? There's great technology like Flowify, Simple Nexus that sends emails and says, where's my documents? And they provide a portal to upload things. So what's the subscription for those pieces of technology? $1,000 a year. So $1,000 a year, what is that? $5 an hour, right? Nothing.
Right.
So now you're replacing your $80 an hour for a $5 an hour. And that's how you create it. You just say, here's what you start to realize out of 180 steps. There's like 5 things that you need to do and everything is less. And it's arbitrage. I paid my loan partner $150,000 a year. I paid my top coach $150,000 a year. And people look at me like $150,000 a year. So, well, number one, I got to make a lot more than that. But number two, I can make more than that because he's handling that for me. And you don't realize that. And here's what you do when you pay that too. Look at all the time that you get back. So then you can do more of the higher things. So by the way, that's just doing a real estate transaction. But here's what you also have to write down. What do you do to get business? I don't know how much door knocking you're doing nowadays with COVID, but you're doing marketing, you're doing social media, you're doing ad spends, you're doing things like that. How much time per week are you doing that? Maybe 5, maybe 10 maximum. What if you can spend 30 hours a week doing that? That's your $200 an hour pay. How much more money do you can make if you can just pay for the rest? So you want to add. So it's hard for people to add because they don't subtract. And people don't want to subtract because they're cheap. They don't want to pay for it. They see the arbitrage. But that's how a P&L works. You add revenue, you subtract expenses, and you have profit. And if you live in the world of profit, you understand. My mentor used to tell me, if you could buy a $20 bill on the street for $10, how many would you buy? I said, as much as I could afford. Like I look at my bank account, it's like I got $1,000. I'm going to buy $2,000 worth of $20 bills. So you're always trying to, and I don't even look at it like it's going to cost me $30 for a real estate assistant. I say to myself, if I invest $30,000 in somebody, how much money can I get back? Adam, you're probably one of our money groups. You invest in the stock market, right? Bonds, things like that. At least some of your money.
Sure.
What's a really great stock market return? 20%, 30%?
Yeah.
Right? There's people that want to invest in the retirement account for a maximum. That's an amazing year, 25, 30%. You can invest $30,000 into a real estate assistant and get 5 times the return. If I told you I can invest in Tesla and Apple and get a 5 times return on it, it's all day. So then people take their $30,000, they put it in their 401ks, they put it in their stock, and they go, oh, well, dude, I made 33, I made 10%. That's amazing. 36,000, that's amazing. Well, just take the 30,000 and put it in your LOA and you'll make 100,000. People don't see that relationship there.
That's crazy. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. We approach it a little differently with our clients. We obviously ask them to make out lists of everything that they do during the day and to identify which of that work is $20 an hour work and which of that work is $200 an hour work. But the hard rule, and you all should be adopting this, particularly if you're willing to take on the mindset of what Khai is teaching us here, is that you should only, and I mean only, be doing things in your business that you either love to do or make you a ton of money. That's it. It's really as simple as that. Jen, I see you eyeballing me that we're running over. You're going to have to deal with it. But Jen's got all these scientific equations. She knows math. As far as what goes on with our RSS feeds and our podcast formulas and so on and so forth. So she gets touchy about that stuff. But yeah, Khai, that is a ridiculously brilliant amount of insight from a very tangible, workable level for how somebody could kind of get off this, I'm spending 10 hours of my week doing $200 an hour work, and I'm spending 40 hours of my week doing $20 an hour work. I think the big issue that we see once people have adopted and grasped onto this concept is that, yes, I'm going to pay somebody to do the $20 an hour work for those 40 hours a week, but then they stumble figuring out that they need to multiply the $200 an hour work into 30 hours a week, 40 hours a week, whatever their threshold happens to be, instead of playing golf. And that's a bit of a dig because I know you play a lot of golf. But but seriously, I think that's kind of the next step, and maybe that's something you can address with us the next time we have you on the show.
Yeah, I mean, in 30 seconds, you have to remember what your purpose is too. I mean, I don't think a lot of people like to be away from their family and they like to work too many hours. There's two people that age the most: U.S. presidents and real estate loan officers. You ever do that like Obama, Bill Clinton 8 years from now? Take your loan officer and real estate agent 8 years from now. It's like the same thing, like U.S. president, right? So you got to remember, you have to remember all of those things, and then all of a sudden your kids grew up too fast. Like, what happened? Like Mike, I got a kid who's graduating senior this year. Like, how fast did that go? Because I worked a couple extra hours. That's why I don't work that much anymore. I want to spend time with them, and that's the motivation for this also. If you're lazy, I don't want to do lists, and I like it the way that I do. Sure, watch time flying. Before you know it, you didn't see your kids. Your golf game still sucks because you couldn't play anymore, and you didn't take more vacations.
That's cool. What do you want to add, Jen? I know you know Khai well. I've seen you guys share a stage together at large mortgage conferences, that kind of thing. Certainly you've got some insight and input comparing what Khai does versus what Just the Tips does, what you've seen. You're not a coaching client for either of us. You're not even in the mortgage or real estate space. What do you think?
Well, I think we could talk to Khai for hours. But I think next time it would be cool to dive into how he got from mortgage space into purely coaching, and more about your team structure, Khai, both in your coaching company. But yeah, I'm glad we finally got you on the show after your fun at the World Series.
I was supposed to be on TV, so I called Jen. I said, here's a problem, Jen. I went to the World Series the night before, and I know I'm going to be drinking a lot of beer, and there's no way I'm going to show up to that podcast not being hungover. I says, but I called Adam. If you really want me there, I will do my professional best. Probably a lot of like some Adderall or something. And she's like, no, we'll do it 2 weeks later. But I like this for two reasons. Number one is, Adam, we do coach a little bit differently, but that doesn't mean we don't learn from each other. I'm fascinated with how you do things. That's why I go to your summit in September. I talk to Carl White. I talk to the core people all the time. Like, tell me what you do. And I extract a little bit from them. And I think it's very respectful for you to say, hey, you know what? Khai's a coach. He's not a competitor. Whatever we can do to, help our clients and, maybe improve Just the Tips. That's great. I think it's great when coaches interview coaches. I also like this layout. I like the Howard Stern and whoever the person is. You got the Howard Stern and the sidekick. I like this. I like this podcast format.
It is cool. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's the
funny.
exact same reason I came down to Miami to hang out with you and your team last year.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, every opportunity like that is a learning opportunity, a teaching opportunity, and this is something that's obviously very big in KPM, in JTT. We have to have an abundance mindset. All of our clients have to have an abundance mindset. If you're good at what you do, no matter what it is you do, there is plenty of business to go around. If you're the kind of person that isn't willing to share because you think you're going to give your competition an edge, a leg up, whatever the case may be, you're already failing. I mean, and that kind of mentality goes back decades, a century, maybe more. Zig Ziglar was big on it.
Most of the people watching the show, you're like one person. Like, you don't need that much business. You're not trying to start the new Keller Williams. And even if you are, there's still enough space for another real estate company right now.
Yeah.
It's all relative, you know?
True story.
So I appreciate the time on the show. I think we have to try to keep the optimal podcast time, video cast time. So
we're getting there.
It's true.
We're close enough. But yes, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Khai.
And anytime I'll come on again. It's always fun hanging out with both of you.
All right. And in the interest of being as self-serving as possible, because still egomaniac, if you guys want to catch out more of these episodes, if you want to see our weekly little tip video blog, if you want information about JTT in general, if you want a copy of my book, Just the Tips, use the text code. Those of you watching, it's on the bottom of your screen. Those of you listening, text TIPS to 63566, and it'll ping you back how to find all that crap. Khai, thank you for joining us, man. One of my most trusted and respected friends and colleagues, and hopefully one of these days we will allow you to unshackle from your place in LA, and we'll get to see more of you.
Well, I'm going to be unshackling soon from LA. I'm bringing the Kobe jerseys, though. So if everything goes right, I will actually be an Austin resident.
Yeah, we did have that conversation. Actually, it was really funny, speaking of quality of life and doing this kind of stuff, when Khai decided that the hangover period subsequent to an LA Dodger World Series game was going to take precedent over being a guest on our podcast, and that's very tongue-in-cheek. I'm just giving him some shit. I was actually hauling my boat down to the cabin and said, yeah, I don't know, talk to Jen, which fills a lot of these things. One, you guys have got to maintain a certain quality of life, and two, you can delegate. And Jen did deal with it. She found another close colleague and friend of ours, Dre Munyar, took Kai's spot on the show that day, and here is Khai taking Dre's spot on the show. So, yeah, you guys have got to adopt and implement a lot of this, and we'll have Khai back on soon so that you guys can learn a fright more, because he is a wise old man. Much older than he looks, by the way.
That World Series, if I can't take off for World Series or watching baseball with my dad, I don't care how much the money is, how much the time is. Like, isn't that what we work really hard for that memory? So